from the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. A lot of excitement around the city of Denver, a lot of excitement around the NFL. The Broncos are in many projections to be over 10 wins. They're in the top 10 of a lot of power rankings out there. I want to start with the offense, though, and the optimism on the offense. Now, Ben, you've said you expect the Broncos to maybe still add to the offense during the NFL draft coming up. And we have a bigger picture about adding to Nathaniel Hackett's offense and what do they actually need right now. But, yeah, when we talked about the offense, you said wide receiver actually shouldn't be a surprise.
It wouldn't surprise me if they went out and did that. I mean, right now you look at this roster, they're short of running back, short of tight end, and probably short of receivers, so it wouldn't surprise me at all. It looks like they've gone to free agency to shore up the rest of the offensive line, so I kind of doubt that they're going to go in that direction, although they've talked about a right tackle in the future. It doesn't feel like, based on the personnel that they have, that they really want to throw another body in that mix. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I would not be surprised at all to see one of or any of a tight end, running back, and a wide receiver.
Yeah, it certainly seems like a tight end. Albert Okwuegbunam, certainly very talented, health concerns, staying on the field, that kind of thing. And then behind him, Eric Tomlinson and a bunch of unproven. So, yeah, you definitely want to add to that tight end room, and maybe with one of your top picks. When you're talking about Nathaniel Hackett's offense and what we can expect here and what George Paton is trying to do to surround Nathaniel Hackett with the amount of talent that he needs to succeed on the offensive side of the ball. You know, oftentimes we frame this from Russell Wilson's side, but from Hackett's side, I sort of feel like they haven't done a lot really on the offensive side of the ball. So maybe that's Nathaniel saying, I like a lot of these guys, maybe just a couple offensive linemen. Maybe there's more to come in the NFL draft. But what do you think about the job so far George Paton's done surrounding Nathaniel Hackett, an offensive-minded coach with the right amount of talent?
I think George Paton's just about building this roster to be the best roster it can be. And obviously he's going to tailor it to the coaches that he has and get their input on it. But I think overall it's really just about improving the quality of the roster from the bottom up. And so I've always been a big fan of what George Paton has done. I don't think he's really had any misses so far. I mean, Kyle Fuller last year wasn't all that great, but I mean, you were on a 1-year, $5 million deal. That's nothing. So I think that overall, George Paton's done a fantastic job. I look forward to seeing what he's going to do with now an offensive-minded coach at the top of the.
Yeah, and you sort of wonder, like, the decisions to give Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton extensions last year, and with the intention of, hey, we're going to have a much better offensive output this next year. And again, you didn't know what your head coach situation was going to be like at that point, right? When you make that decision, you're going to give those guys extensions. He viewed them as core players, but they certainly fit into exactly what you'd imagine a team that really wants to take a big step forward on the offensive side of the ball. You didn't have to go out into free agency to overspend on somebody else to bring in here to replicate what you were getting from Courtland Sutton or Tim Patrick.
Yeah, I think it continues to establish the culture that we're going to pay our own. We're going to build from the draft. We're going to build our guys up. And when we do that, they've earned the reward of getting the big money contract. I also think that putting those guys in place maybe made it more enticing for a guy like Russ Wilson to waive his no trade clause and come to Denver. You know, hey, we've got this ready-made offense. It's plug and play for you. So I think there's multiple facets to getting those contracts done earlier. I think it was smart. And also you beat the market. The market reset this offseason was insane. And you know, I think that across the board, looking back with 2020 hindsight, I think a lot of people probably should have gotten extensions done because with the salary cap being what it was before the 208.5 bump post-COVID, I think that you probably could have got a lot of guys a lot cheaper if you'd done deals early. So I think George Paton kind of was smart there, went ahead and did that before the market reset. And who knows, you could be paying those guys, ridiculous amounts of money.
And that absolutely would have been the case because somebody would have looked at Courtland Sutton and said, boy, he had that Pro Bowl year when he was healthy. Mm-hmm. And that was with Drew Lock and Joe Flacco and all these guys thrown to him. So, yeah, I mean, and then Tim Patrick's looked like a very, very strong wide receiver, too, borderline wide receiver one at times. So I certainly think the Broncos would have overpaid if they had to wait to free agency. What is this offense missing? Like, I mean, we talked about the tight end, we talked about the wide receiver. If things don't go well this year, right? Russell Wilson's a quarterback. You think they're going to have a significant improvement, right? But if, let's say, we get to the end of the year, the offense didn't work out, what was the reason?
Either Russell Wilson was hurt or had completely fallen apart. Or there were injuries just all over the place. I mean, in terms of pieces this offense is missing, I think that's a different question. I think that you're missing somebody to take the top off. Okay. We're hoping KJ Hamler is that, but he hasn't. We don't know for sure that he can consistently be that. He hasn't been that yet.
Well, that's where I was going to go. I was going to say performance of guys that haven't really become what we expect them to be. Jerry Jeudy's another one of those guys, right? I mean, and even Courtland Sutton had that year. He had some flashes, but he has not consistently been that guy. Tim Patrick's probably the most consistent guy on the roster as far as a receiver goes.
Yeah.
So I'm leading the witness here a bit because I'm more or less saying, are they maybe missing a true number one?
I don't think that's the case. I think that they're just missing a role player that can take the top off. I think they're missing, either a reliable KJ Hamler to come in, get past the injury stuff and be that guy, or somebody else that they need to get that has that kind of vertical speed because, you've got two big body contested catch guys in Tim Patrick and Courtland on the outside, and then Jeudy is a very adept route runner, but it had some drops issues, so he's got to clean that up. And in terms of the passing skeleton, though, I think you've got everything you want. You've got a guy that can work the middle. You've got two guys that can play on the outside. Hamler's got the speed. He just needs to turn reliability, and then you've got an athletic tight end like an Allbright. He also needs to stay healthy. So I think they've got what they need in regard to that.
But they're all projections. Like, that's the one thing about this roster.
I don't think Patrick's a projection, but I think the rest of them are.
You understand my point, though,
Courtland,
right?
You're still coming back from the injury. You got to prove it. Jeudy, you got to prove the drops. KJ, you got to prove he can stay healthy. Alberto's got to prove he can stay healthy. Javonte Williams got to prove he can be the man.
So that's the only thing that I lean back on this because at least with Russ had, and yeah, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about his offensive line, but with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, those guys were beyond the projection conversation. They were actual on-field production. They were guys that were difference makers.
But is the production contingent on the quarterback at this point? Would Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy have better production with competent quarterback play rather than Teddy Bridgewater?
Yes, and that's what you're banking on, and I think that's the gamble, right? That's why you give up 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a bevy of players because you believe the quarterback is the difference and the reason why these guys have not realized their full abilities. So I'm with you on that one. That's just when I come to what will it look like at the end of this season if it doesn't work out? Because you're right, everybody's excited. I opened this thing saying we're all excited. If it doesn't work out, that's one of the things I'm wondering. We'll say next year, boy, they really kind of need a number one. They need a guy that really changes everything because again. Every team has their receiving core built a little bit different. Some have the top heavy. We have it like look at the Green Bay Packers, right? Mm-hmm. It was Devontae Adams, then a bunch of guys that were good, but none of them could be a one.
Well,
they
had somebody who could take the top off, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Sure, but the point being here is that the Broncos have assembled a receiving core of all guys that are relatively even strength, at least right now, until we see somebody jump farther ahead.
I don't think putting them 1 through 4. I don't think that's a thing. I think the skills.
But it is on some teams.
I mean, not really. I think.
Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill was one.
But that's not. But I mean, that's just because they were just a good receiver. Nuke Hopkins was the same guy in Houston. He's just a great receiver. I think that you need certain skill sets, and you need somebody that can push the field vertically. You need guys that can allow you to always hit them on the slant. You need guys that can do certain skill sets and. If that guy happens to be a number one, cool. Like to take the top off guy in Green Bay, it wasn't Adams. I mean, it was Scantling.
Right. Very cool.
But to take the top off guy in Kansas City is Tyreek Hill, who was hit the number one. So I don't think ranking them with. There's different skill sets. I just think you need a competent people who can play the X, Y, Z and go from there.
I'm with it, man. And that it's more about the attention that a defense gives those kinds of players and the ability to still win.
Which is why I prefer my take the top off guy to not be the number one guy, because
Certainly.
then you got to focus on a guy who's a great, who can do everything, like a Keenan Allen, a great possession receiver.
Right.
But if I've got somebody over here who could take the top off, I've got a roll coverage here as well. I'm going to get a one-on-one somewhere. Right. I don't want that to be the same guy.
And Sutton looked like he was rounding into that form before the injury, so that's where I think he can get right back to there. I think Jerry Jeudy's ready to take that kind of step too. So again, I love having the projection conversation. It's very, very exciting. It's just one of those things that's been kind of bouncing around in my head, like, okay, if for some reason it doesn't, then this is what it might be because the projections never became realization. But in this case, right now, I'm super thrilled. Watching the videos of those guys working out there in California has been nothing short of exciting. So we'll obviously spend a lot of time talking about that over the course of the summer. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.